We are so excited to be here with you again tonight to talk about a fun topic. We're going to be talking about etiquette tonight, and I think it's going to be something that you'll have a lot to say about. We want to thank our sponsors, brokersrealty.com. If you're going to buy, sell, rent, auction off your property, make sure you check out brokersrealty.com of Stroudsburg. Sarah Smith Katz down there in that box below me happens to be one of their busiest, best real estate agents, and she's running her little hiney off right now because she's so busy selling, listing and selling houses. But she still has time for you, so make sure to check her out. Hi, Sarah. How you doing?
Hi, Holly. I'm doing well. Yes, we are absolutely crazy busy in the Pocono Mountains as far as real estate sales. So if you're interested in purchasing, you can't dawdle because we're running out of inventory. But, I'll be glad to help you in any way I can. And I want to say hello to cousin Aaliyah tonight. Hi, Aaliyah.
Hi, you said the word dawdle. I just want to say that. That's a
Dawdle.
word
Yep.
we don't use enough. Don't dawdle. I
Oh,
used to love that.
I love that.
Very old fashioned.
Because it's not like, dragging your feet or whatever, but people dawdle. Or
They do. They do, especially when they're in line buying that one banana. When they're in the grocery store buying that one banana. Well, I'm glad that you brought up that people dawdle because we're talking about some of the things that we do as people. And now that we're in the electronic age, we're going to talk about etiquette and have niceties gone out the window. Those things that our moms and dads taught us to do, mostly our moms, let's be honest. Or maybe we saw our moms and dads do, or our grandparents, and what we were raised up or taught to do. And things are so different now. Not because of what our current situation is, but just because we're in the electronic age and we're in the fast, let's get her done, do it. And I think that there's still a way to do that and be efficient and not to dawdle, not to coin a phrase from Sarah, but also don't dawdle, but be respectful and be, it's all about acknowledging either when somebody, does something for you. It doesn't have to be a gift. A lot of the times we think about thank yous and what to do's when it comes to like gift giving or receiving. And so, Sarah, when you were a little girl, when you were growing up, or in your adult life, are handwritten notes something? I'm almost certain I know the answer to this because I knew your mother quite well. So I'm almost going to answer, and I'm sure. And your dad was in business. So how did they handle the etiquette portion of life, whether it be personal or business? Did you see them write thank you notes, handshakes? Like how did it go down?
I think that we'll probably focus on my mother because she was very, very proper, as were all of our aunties. And we had several of them. So it felt like we had, so many moms growing up. My dad was a handshake man, but as far as any other etiquette, he would open the door for you or whatever. But other than that, there was not like he wasn't the person to say, you got this gift or you got that gift, sit down and write a letter and I'll enclose it in my letter. Because back then, writing was a very common thing. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have text. We didn't have, so that your only way of communication other than a phone call, which was not common, to write.
Right.
So writing
you didn't grow up with email or any of those things. You actually sat down I brought an example. These are called, boys and girls, greeting cards. Comes in a box. It's a little, could be a square, could be whatever. I always have, let's say it together, thank you card. Yes. This is every household should have them. A stash of cards. In my humble opinion, I still believe in handwritten thing. I mean, now we're not even learning handwriting in school, which I have a whole other issue with. But this is something that's really important, whether it be a variety of cards. Sometimes I have those variety sets that have like anniversary, birthday, whatever. These are my cards du jour. And don't you feel, Sarah, too, because you and I are both in business and you've been in business since I was a little girl, practically my whole life. So in the jewelry business, the real estate business. And those are ticket items. Those are not like you go buy a stick of gum. These are like luxury, sometimes in some cases, luxury items, the jewelry store. I just remember coming to visit you when you worked at Macy's. I mean, gloriously gorgeous. Was it customary for you to write thank you notes for those engagement rings? Like how have you personally, since you learned that from your mom, how have you kind of taken that through to your career?
Well, for me, especially with the real estate business, it is more customary for us to give a gift at closing. So that is our thank you for, being our clients. Whatever it might be, a bottle of wine or a wreath for the door or,
Yeah.
coffee and coffee cups. It all depends on your.
Yeah.
So, along with that, you can enclose a note and say, thank you for thinking of me. Here's my card. If,
Right.
if you ever have a client or, someone that's interested, please have them give me a call.
I like that. I like that. I think that says a lot because you're not just like a dollar or a number. I mean, I have been doing, social marketing or whatever, even before, but all my years, actually my whole life I've been sending handwritten correspondence. I mean, I have a box of, before we had the internets and the emails, I have a box of people that lived overseas, pen pals. I think I had my first pen pal, I think like in the 3rd grade, so you're like, you get, our generation or past generations have gotten kind of in that habit. I have a box of thank you notes when I was in plays in school, high school and junior high, cards from people, and then me writing them back, then you get the flowers and you write them back. And it's like, but you know what? Those people are kind of still in and around my life. You know what I mean? And we always kind of treat each other like that. It's kind of like, even with the Facebook, it's kind of like you still kind of communicate with certain people in a certain way,
I
differently.
I think one of the things that I love doing, and I have always tried to do, is if I was traveling somewhere, whether it was Arizona or whatever, especially, when I was married, we traveled a lot. So I would try and send postcards out.
Right. Oh, I love to get postcards. Oh, I love that.
And that is something that I always loved and kept them.
Yeah.
And in going through my mom's things, there were postcards from all over that, she had received, and always kept. So to me, a postcard, if, not everybody can go away and, think about buying gifts for everybody or whatever, but if you go and buy, 20 postcards and sit down and just put with
Stamps.
your
Yeah.
back of
Yeah,
it.
exactly. It's like a little gift and you get the picture. And when I was a flight attendant, I used to send them to my mom. So she would see,
Mhm.
where I was, and she still has some of them on her refrigerator. So,
Right.
like I said, I have my notes and my letters. I used to get a lot of flowers when I was in plays and shows and stuff like that. So I have save the little card, and stapled it to the playbill. You know what
Well,
I mean?
and
So I have that.
if you're not into like the real like thank you note or whatever, there are some really lovely cards that you can get that are just blank. They have a pretty front, nothing on the
Right.
front. They're
Right.
blank.
I just use this as an example.
Yeah.
I just
But,
use this as an
but
example because they
yeah,
happen to say thank you. Yeah.
but multifaceted. I mean, I actually just, rented a little storage locker and I got a thank you note from the storage company. So, it
Right.
seems to be a thing to do to
Right.
let, oh,
I mean, I grew up in the generation, or we grew up in the generation where it was like corporate, like everybody, you got a card from everybody, and you would put them around your doorway or across the fireplace, or I stick them kind of in the eaves of my china cabinet. And it seems like not just companies, but it seems like personally, not only thank you notes, but I'm getting less and less Christmas card. Do you think, Holly, that's because it's price prohibitive? Maybe some of the old guard is unfortunately passing away, those traditions. Is it, that people like to send more e-cards now that we have all those little jib jabs, and you can do so many different things with email and Facebook and Messenger? What do you think that is, Holly, that people, I'm getting less and less. I don't know about you.
I get roughly the same every year. I mean, I put Christmas cards are one of my hardcore activities every year. Like I get my Christmas cards right after Christmas for the next year. And I spend a lot of time picking them out and looking at them. And they have to say, for me personally, they have to say Merry Christmas. Like I look for very specific cards and I save those cards all year. And I get my address book out, which now happens to be an app. And I I have it on an app now because I have lost so many addresses that I got kind of sick of saying, could you send me your address on Facebook Messenger? So I now have my address book on an app on my phone. And I sit down one night with a glass of wine and all my stuff, and I use special pens that my husband collects. They're fountain pens, and he actually fills them with ink, my ink color of choice for that year. So it might be black, it might be red, it might be green. And then I also use a wax seal on the back of it that I.
Yeah, I used to make my own Christmas cards from scratch. So
Yeah, you went even farther than that. I do it because it's a fun.
and the last couple of years that hasn't happened. That doesn't mean that my son might want to do that with me at some point, when you have small children and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like I think you're not getting as many. I don't care who you are. You're not getting as many because number one, companies are not open. They're closed. The places that used to send them, or they've been swallowed up. They're not doing them because they're price prohibitive, unless it's maybe their top tier clients, or
people don't want to pay 50 cents per card, which is what it is. 50.
So maybe like, do you get digital cards and things like that? No, not a lot. Yeah,
not a lot. I get really pretty much the people I send cards to send me cards back. It's kind of like a closed circle.
Yeah, most of the people that I send cards to, we're kind of on a loop. And then every once in a while, and then of course there's my separate clients that get a special card or whatever it is. And you guys know, because you both have been my clients at different times, that that I still send thank you notes.
You send me a thank you note as your client, even though
I might put little tea bags in it. So if you're watching and you're one of my clients, my new clients, I am very much far behind. As you can see that this box is mostly full. So if you're one of my new clients and you're watching, you will be getting your thank you card. I'm just about a month behind because I started a new business. So it's like, you're kind of behind a little bit. I'm kind of behind.
I was thinking about when I was a little girl and my mom, we used to always, Christmas cards was a big thing. We used to sit down and stacks of Christmas cards, and she always loved getting Christmas cards back. But what she did not like were the letters. Do you guys remember the letters that people would write about everything they've done?
You mean like a family newsletter?
Yeah.
Bum, bum.
Now that's old fashioned. Now that's something I haven't seen since my grandmother was still alive, and we got one from our family in Hawaii. We would get one of those.
They irritate my mother to no end.
The newsletter, the family newsletter.
She figured that they should just, stay in touch through the year and forget the rest of that. So
you're just not that special to me during the year, but
yes,
but I want to send you this newsletter. Well, you know what? You could always use it to line the kit litter pan. So do you think, I've noticed too that, and I've always done this, I still do this, even when I go to my sister's for Christmas Eve, I do this, and she knows this. She always gets a hostess gift from me, whether it be a candle or a piece of spode or a nice bottle of, usually I don't give I try not to give liquor. I did give her liquor for her birthday, but it was a themed gift.
It was very themed, and I left my drink in the other room, but it was in the cup you gave me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think
it was unorganized.
So like I always take something. She's my sister. She's somebody that I see on a regular basis, but she's still hosting Christmas Eve. So I bring her something, an ornament, maybe a set of dish towels, or maybe some Arbonne or something. This year she might get a sports bra. I don't know, depending on Merry Christmas. Here's a sports bra. She will take it. Here's your Christmas sports bra. But you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like, Sarah, that is something that is going by the wayside, or do you feel that people are still giving gifts in kind, doing those, taking that extra step, even if it's a homemade thing, like a homemade ornament or a candle or remember people used to give those little soaps?
Well, here's what I think. I think that on the whole, as a culture, we have lost a lot of the niceties. And one of them is bringing hostess gifts. I think that's kind of gone along the wayside. I think bringing a dish to pass. I mean, we do that in our family, but I don't know that is something that.
Well, I think we're very vocal about it. It's like, listen, people, I ain't doing this by myself. So you bring this, you bring this, you bring the drinks. If you don't like the cook, that's fine. You better bring a bottle of something or the rolls, okay? Because I ain't doing this myself.
Yeah. So tips are big for the non-cookers.
And Sarah, you always are. We always kind of make it come together somehow.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not at
Right.
Holly's this weekend. She's having it catered, so we don't
That-
have to worry about that. So that's a treat. Except for me, I'm making the cake, but that's a whole other thing, which is fine. But then I would think, now I'm not saying to anybody that's coming to that party, however, the proper thing to do would be to bring her something.
That's
Or
correct.
to bring her and her husband something.
Yeah, because it's
I'm not. I'm
She's
not.
bringing me a cake.
I'm bringing her
That
the cake. That's
covers
her gift.
it.
But I'm not saying a gift. I'm not saying a piece of crystal. I mean, it used to be.
Yeah,
If you
for-
watch like old shows, it would be a piece of crystal. It would be something, but not necessarily at this.
this is
They've
is
been
this
married for 400 years. It wouldn't necessarily be like a
this the
setting.
anniversary, Holly?
What?
20 Is it 20?
20th. So it's porcelain.
Concrete block.
Or-
It's
Concrete
porcelain.
block.
Which is not good for Holly because Holly doesn't do good with porcelain. So we're going to skip that.
Well, but,
Maybe
work.
a porcelain picture frame. I don't even know if they make such a thing.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. So 9 billion pieces by the time Holly's
Right.
done with it.
So
Yeah.
it would be proper, and it's not to call any of the pieces out, people out. I will send you a list later. I'll let you know. Not to call any of those people out, but the proper thing to do that on her birthday, or I'm sorry, on her anniversary party, is to bring them something.
Right.
And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be porcelain or cut crystal or whatever, like it used to be, big time.
Yeah.
It would be a bottle of wine, a bottle of champagne, a box of something that they could share, something, an edible arrangement, whatever, some whipped cream and Hershey syrup, whatever. I mean, as tacky and out of place as it may be, it's still a gift, right?
It's still a gift. Yeah.
It's still a gift. A throw blanket, like there's, and let's face it, people, don't be cheap. I'm just telling you that now we have no excuse. There's online, there's TJ Maxx, there's Home Goods, there's Kmart's, there's Walmart's, there's Target's. You can go to the bargain bin. She won't know the difference, and she'll appreciate it.
I will, pretty much anything. I did
Frames,
look it up.
wine.
I did look it up before I decided to throw myself a party to see if it was proper etiquette. And actually, for an anniversary, it is. It is completely appropriate it's not appropriate to throw yourself a birthday party, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
That's still in the etiquette. It's not.
done
Like,
that.
that's something that should be done for you. But it is okay when you've been married less than 50 years to just throw a party because you want to celebrate. So etiquette wise, me throwing my own party, and I'm not doing it because I expect any gifts. I just want to have a party. It's a good,
Oh,
nice
right.
party.
You're doing it without expectation. But the proper thing to do would be for people to bring you something. So if you're watching and you're coming to the party on Saturday, bring it because I'm going to be watching. No, I'm just kidding. No judgment. We'll just talk about you after you leave.
The other thing that I've been thinking about, and it's something we talked about earlier, is when you go out to eat, or you go to your hairdresser, or you go and get your nails done, how do you tip? Because
everyone that performs a service, let's keep it clean, people. Nails, hair, driver, unless it's like, let's say you order that driver, like, what is it? Like
Uber or
Uber or whatever, hop, skip, jump, whatever they call it. Unless it's programmed into that, because you're doing it through an app. If you've already tipped them, sometimes we're already pre-tipped,
Right.
Or if we order at a restaurant and it's for more than a couple people, sometimes, so watch out for that. You don't want to, obviously, if you want to go over that. If that Uber driver or that restaurant person was great, I always say 20, I do 20% to nail, hair, anyone that gives me a service, provides service for me. My Starbucks person, if I have food delivered, if I'm going to pick up food, to pick up food, I tip.
Now, some restaurants do add
Right.
Their gratuity on top of it if you're doing takeout, but I still tip the girl, whoever it is.
Yes, I agree.
Even if they've already charged you 18% on top of your bill because it's takeout, I still will hand them a couple of bucks.
Right, because that 18% might be dispersed. Or go, so now that girl maybe isn't, maybe they're not having a girl or guy are not having as many tables.
Right.
Because of the situation.
And I have to say, as a server, and I've been a server, that was my part-time job for years.
I've been a bartender and a waitress more than I've ever done anything in my life, I think, if you added it all together, which I love it.
Both of my daughters are servers going, putting themselves through college.
Mhm.
It is really important to tip
Oh,
because
it is so important.
these servers basically are getting like $2.85 an hour. So without your tips, they shouldn't even be there.
But
they're
the other thing is the flip side of the coin, proper etiquette is there are some people you do not tip.
So tell us about that.
You technically are not supposed to tip the owner of an establishment.
Yes.
So if the owner does your hair or the owner does your nails or the owner does whatever for you, you are not technically, etiquette says you do not tip the owner
I
of the
tip
business.
the owner.
But I'm just
Yeah,
saying
we
that's
always
what
tip the
says.
owner.
There are also some businesses that don't allow their employees to get tips. So like
Right.
you do a food delivery or pickup service, sometimes they don't allow tipping. I know Walmart, if they get caught taking a tip, they could lose their job.
Wow.
So I've always tried to come up with different ways to tip them. So I've bought them lunch. I've brought them drinks. I've brought them bags of snacks. I'll order a couple extra bags of chips in my grocery order and I'll take them out and hand them to him, and say, here, take this in and share it with your friends. So there's alternative ways to tip.
I know that my hairdresser, shout out to Sean at Salon Evolve. I know that he's the owner and I give him a very nice tip because he treats his people very well.
Yes.
He's a giver,
Right.
and you can see that and you can feel that. And I know that. I know that. So, I mean, I don't care if he turns around and puts it in the jar at the grocery, in the tip. Like if he takes that $20 bill or whatever and puts it somewhere and does something with that makes me happy. He doesn't need it. Hey, Sean, you don't need it. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm not, it's not for me to judge. It's never for us to judge. It's just because somebody owns a place doesn't mean that they're a baller, or that they're
right.
large. Right. And especially now, and we don't know if that person's going to give, that owner's going to say, hey, you're not having such a great day. Here you go. You know what I mean? You haven't seen as many people. Here you go. It's kind of like,
I think that concept
when in doubt, pay it forward.
Right. I mean, the concept comes from when you pay a hairdresser, usually they have to pay for their spot. So they're taking part of what you pay them and paying it to the owner. The owner
in Pennsylvania, I don't think so.
The owner gets to keep all their money.
Yeah. In Pennsylvania, it's illegal to rent it. I don't think you can rent a chair in Pennsylvania, but I'm not sure. You could check on that. But so in our state where we are, they're employed, I believe, by the
right
establishment. So,
and on the flip side of that, one of my daughters gets tips because she's a bartender and very, very pretty young lady. But guys, seriously, don't go in and hand a $50 bill to her and think you're going to get some special service because she's a bartender. That's like rude. I can't even talk about it.
No special service from the children in our family. That would definitely be a rule.
No special service for.
I don't know. Somebody walks in and I was a bartender too, and quite lovely in my prime, and used to get big bills. I was like, thanks. Here's your drink. Have a nice day. Just like, wow, that's really nice. I used to get tips in my when I was a flight attendant. I used to wear a dress, and it had these kind of big pockets in them, to hold pens and corkscrews and all that kind of stuff. And my favorite was the flights to Vegas. They'd always be very lucrative going out and not so much coming back. So because people would slide $100 bills, $50 bills in my pocket. I'd be like, thanks. Thanks.
Here's another old-fashioned thing to talk about. And I've seen some funny things on Reddit lately that really made me chuckle, but the good old RSVP.
Oh yes, you should always RSVP.
Yes.
But not only is it important to RSVP, but it's also important that if you can't come, like let's say you've RSVP'd, it's the day of, let's say it's a wedding, you've RSVP'd, you've chosen your, I don't know, your chipper chicken or your sirloin, whatever it is. And it's the day of, and your kid, you fall down and break your foot, somebody's in the hospital, your kid. Try, something's happening outside. Try to always let someone know, even if it's not the bride, if the bride is like just out of her mind, try to find a family member, send an email, send a text, get it to someone that you're not coming, because there's nothing worse than having those meals being prepared, those seats empty, if at least, in the morning of, that they know kind of what's going on. It's always, so RSVP, but then also follow it up. I mean, if you're going, fine, but if you're not, if something happens, because something always happens. If you invite 150 people and 150 people, let's say 120 RSVP, 110 are coming. It is very rare that all 120 come. Now, my wedding, everybody came. Everybody came. Not one person. Everybody did. And it was great. And it was great.
The hottest day of the year, and everybody came.
Everybody came. And that was fine. So we had nobody calling in the morning. Nobody said, oh, I talked to them last night and they said they were going to be here and now they're not here. You know what I mean? There was none of that. But first of all, you're going to worry about them. You're going to be like, that's really weird. They RSVP'd, or, hey, they're on Facebook. And don't, if you're not going to come and you say that you broke your foot or your kid is sick, don't be on Instagram or on Facebook showing a different story than what you told the people. At least, what's really, learn how to lie right. And I'm not saying lying is good, but in the age of now, you have the phones and now you have the Instagrams and now you have the TikToks, right? So let's take it further. You RSVP'd that you're coming, you ordered your chipper chicken and your sirloin, you're coming. It's, 2 months before, a month before. Yeah, I can't wait. Woo, we're going to party. We're going to get, woo, play this song, play that song. You're all excited. You buy the outfit. You decide that you're not going to show up for whatever reason. You never call and say, or you call and say that you broke your foot, somebody's in the hospital, oh, I'm in my favorite now, I'm in a really bad spot right now, and I just can't, everybody's in a bad spot, and then the bride's like, oh, bummer, dude, or the groom's like, oh, I'm so sorry that you can't come, and that's too bad, and let me know how that all works out. I'll get in touch with you when I come back from my honeymoon. You go on your Instagram or on your Facebook to put your wedding pics on, your little candids, and you see such said person that told you that great grandma Flo was in the hospital, and now they're on the Insta posing, on the beach.
This is my favorite RSVP I've ever seen in the history of RSVP.
Wait, I wasn't done. So what do you think about that? What do you think about people that say that they're coming, they don't come, they lie, and then they show up on the Insta? And that could be for anything, an appointment that they're supposed to have with you. It could be anything.
I would X them off the guest list for all future
parties. All eternity. I mean, even in business, right? I'm sure that you've had that.
I've had people, cancel, and then, that they're out to have a dinner or something,
right? Which, because they posted on social media.
And the problem is that when it's, that is a bigger problem for a person that is in business and, allotted time to you, and then you can't make it, but you're out looking at houses with somebody else because they're, they call and say, oh, right. I'm showing person this house, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought I was showing that person.
In your instance, yeah, exactly. Or like you said, it's always like you have plans with that person, you've moved things maybe, or maybe you've gotten a sitter, or you've made arrangements, and then all of a sudden, and it could be totally legitimate. People get sick, we get sick, we have things happen, our kids, our husbands get weird stuff that happen for real, like it happens for real, but it's the people that you kind of catch. And I see that falls under etiquette. It's like, number one, we should always tell the truth. Two, now we can get caught. Like you can get caught red-handed lying. Used to be, you could kind of get away with it because you could unless somebody saw you, physically saw you, you could tell all kinds of lies. But now
etiquette, and see, in my business, it's etiquette / ethics. They kind of go hand, because you want, for instance, I've had people say to me, well, I want you to be my agent. I don't want to keep working with the agent that I'm with. And I'll always say to them, but I can't ethically take you out to see houses if you have signed a buyer's agency with someone else, or if you are, if they have shown you this house, I can't.
Right. People don't understand that. Right, exactly. It's like if somebody another rep wants to sign with me, but they're already talking to somebody, it's like, well,
Like
who are you talking to?
it's
We
not.
don't want to.
No, I mean, and I know that for some people it's because, either they like your personality, or they feel that they're going to be, you and they are going to get on better, but there are certain steps that you have to go through. So, that etiquette slash ethics, it does really work together. I mean, you don't want to do, it's kind of the golden rule. Like, you don't want to do to somebody what you wouldn't want done to yourself. So
Do you feel like that's starting to kind of, kind of like what I was talking about before about RSVPing? It's like, do you feel like you said before, you feel like the niceties have gone out, are
I
starting to go out?
I think that and I have to say that I had an instant, and I don't mean to get off the beaten track, but I had an instance this week that made me think about how gentlemen are not really gentlemen anymore, that we kind of interact differently. And I think that masks have done some of this, because I think that with the mask on, we are less known. So people
Mm-hmm.
are looking at us, and they might not realize that they know me, because they're only seeing this much of me out in public.
Right.
But I was at a store, and it was a little backed up, but they weren't counting people to let you into the store. You know what I mean? It was just that somebody was off to the side, like they were using the hand sanitizer or whatever. And there was a man in the lobby just kind of looking out through the door. So I walked around him and walked, and as I was going around them, he skirts past me and starts waving his arms at me like I had done some horrible thing because I had walked around him. But I wasn't like jumping the line. There was no line. But I
Right.
thought, how freaking rude is that?
Mm.
That is something that we have to think about in today's culture, that we're not being overly rude to people, because that to me was like so rude that he was
Yeah.
doing. I'm like, what the heck did I do? And then I'm thinking to myself, well, I've got this stupid mask on, and I feel like I'm, breathing my own breath all the time, which I hate. But that's me, but I still, we all deal with it in our way. But I think that that's something that we have to think about. How
Mhm.
we, in a culture that now has to wear a mask, so we only are, people don't know if we're smiling or if we're frowning or if we're, whatever. How do we get around that?
Sticking the tongue out
Oh,
them.
to
Mm.
show
No
our
kids.
Yes,
Mm.
but to show our humanity, like, how do we
Right. Like we were
interact?
kind of already losing that, holding the
Yes,
door open. I have to say that I don't experiencing that too much. And if the person doesn't, it's because they didn't realize. And most of the time they turn around and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you there," or I do the same thing. I mean, we all have our hands full, whatever. There's instances. But I think now, if we really felt like that was happening before, that people weren't smiling, and I know that that's not really part of etiquette, but people weren't smiling before, and now we have this. It's like, it's not making it better. It's not improving the situation that was kind of like instant gratification, quick, everything's quick, rush, 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 digital.
but polite interaction is certainly part of etiquette.
Well, I don't
So,
think that ever goes out of style.
right, but
Right.
I find people are being much more rude to each other than they ever have in the past.
Well, Holly, what do you think about when we talk about this all the time, or we have like in the last couple of years, with the phones and everything, and when people get political, there is things that I know that Holly and I have had things said to us that that person, you know, because I know that Holly and I aren't doing it, but that person that's saying it to us, would they say that to the person's face? Would they say that to our face? Right?
Mhm.
Okay, if you're so confident in what you're saying, whatever it doesn't matter who it's about or what it's about. Would you say that to the person's face?
Mhm.
Most likely the answer is no, unless you have that very special person who's very, up in your face and ballsy. Most of the cases, Holly, I don't think that they would say those rude things. And it could be political or whatever.
No.
Don't you think, Holly, that it's so different now in terms of that etiquette, how we relate to each other, how we talk to each other? You'd never say it to each other's to the person's face, but now the social media has made it like,
well, I think that
it's a passive aggressive person's playground, number one. But Holly, how do you think that that's changed? Do you
I think
like
it's changed in a couple ways, like especially like I've noticed lately, because I'm a party person. Like I like to plan parties, have parties, host parties. I love having people to my house. That the more you like share what you're doing and planning, and it's very weird, this thing that's happened lately where you have people who say they want to get together and they want to see you and they want to be around you and please invite me to your next thing, and you invite them to all your things and they don't show up, and instead they're doing something else, that isn't quite as formal as would take you away from joining your group. I think that's another thing that social media kind of does too, because
you can kind of hide a little bit.
Right. Like you can hide from people. You can say whatever you want to people. You can hide from people. People don't respond to things at all. Like you don't know what they're doing. Like, are you coming? Are you not coming? Do you need food? I don't know, because people kind of ghost you and don't tell you what they're doing, because they act.
But then they get offended if you don't invite them.
And then they get offended if you don't invite them. Because so I've been kind of stuck in that circle.
Right. A couple of times.
I really have
people
people I'm related to sometimes, but it's like
friends, right?
Right. You just kind of have to be like,
right. What do you think about, though, people that don't know? I mean, before, like, we grew up in a time where you could have different views and see each other at the mall. I'm just going to pick the mall because that used to be a big meeting spot on a Friday night. Like, I know that my grandparents would walk around the mall and we would see everybody that we knew, right? And my grandfather liked to people, whatever. And you'd shake hands, and that person might have a different political affiliation, or maybe they're of a different persuasion, old-fashioned ways. And my grandfather would shake their hand and have a little conversation. They might vote completely different. They might be, my grandfather was a huge he was World War II veteran, and he really was, a vet, and like that was like pretty much part of his life. Maybe it would be somebody that's kind of like not really, sort of kind of anti-war, maybe like a different kind of whatever. It'd be like they'd shake hands, they'd have like a certain kind of, you have like a certain kind of understanding, and then you'd part ways, and then that would be it. Maybe he talked about them behind their back. I don't know, but it would be like, that person's a human being. I'm a human being. I don't have to like everything that they stand for. I don't have to
very different.
It was break bread with them. They're not coming to my house, but I can shake their hand. I'm not going to have them to my house, but I can shake their hand.
Well, no, it was very, very different, because when we were growing up and we had both of our sets of grandparents and they had their socializations, there were rules. You did not talk about politics. You did not talk about sex, and you did not talk about religion in mixed company. You only talked about those things when you were with your family, and you would have social engagements and everybody would get together and none of those things would be discussed. And
I can tell you, just last Saturday at my son's 7th birthday, to which, Sarah, you missed all
family,
the entire family, from little kids on up, in a living room, and we talked about, the kids weren't paying attention. It's not like we were saying it to their face. The kids could care less. Talking about everything that you're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah,
literally. But we have a different kind of family. Even as a kid, we are so, but like there's not, I would not have the conversations that we have, and Sarah, this time you weren't really part of that because you had to leave, but I don't even have to tell you, and what kind of conversation we were having, that I can't be like that with my in-laws. I can't talk about those things with my in-laws. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they're just not those people.
I couldn't have that kind of conversation with my in-laws either. But what we're talking about, to be clear, is, the way that we were raised in etiquette, you don't talk about sex, politics, or
religion.
And they did not. They did not. I mean, I grew up going to, attending, having our grandparents have socials like at their house in the neighborhood. No one broke the rules.
Right.
Everybody had a good time.
We in our
Well, and also children, most of the time, in most cases, were seen and not heard. You did not
right.
come
We
in,
were separate.
not
We
the
were
way that our kids do, or the way that our now at this point our
in,
teenage or
in our,
young
in our
lady.
we
Yeah.
talk about everything: sex, politics, religion.
Mhm.
I will say that in my social life outside of my family, no one knows my sex life, my religious affiliation, or if what my political party is, because I don't
Right.
talk.
Right.
And I found that is how it works best for me. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm blinking on and off because people keep trying to call me. And
That's okay. That's
Thanks
all right.
So you're busy. You're such a busy real estate agent. It's crazy. We
oh
know.
my,
I've kind of followed in those footsteps of our grandparents. And, I don't talk about those things with people who aren't in my family because, or in my very close circle of friends that,
Mhm.
some women friends that I have, some guy friends that I have, very close friends that where they stand on everything, and you can have that conversation. When you are socializing, that's what you're supposed to be doing, socializing. You're not supposed to be debating. You're not supposed to be,
well, I
making a point. You're supposed to be socializing.
I find it very interesting though that because of the way things are on Facebook, because people will say things that they would never say to your face. And I
Right.
think very interesting what you said earlier, Aaliyah, about, would people say things to your face? I find it very interesting that on the whole, uh, there are so many things that are discussed in polite, what we call polite society, that we never would have talked about even 10 years ago. People
I
saying, "You're
agree.
my
I
friend.
agree.
If you belong to that party, you can't be my friend." How is that
Right.
possible?
But it gets vile. I mean,
Mm.
people aren't just saying, I don't like you because you vote one way or the other way, or you disagree with me. I want you to die. I want your kids to die. I hope somebody blows up your house. I hope somebody sets fire to you. I hope
Mhm.
somebody RAPEDs you. You know what I mean? Like, or APESs you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not like to your person, like
Right.
violence. So it's not like, hey, Holly, you know what? You like cats, I like dogs. You know what? We're just not, you're not my
You're-
kind of people. Now it's like, oh, do you have a problem with dogs? You probably like to see them get, you probably leave them on the side of the road. It's like they take it to a whole level. And it's because there's this device in front of them, whether it be a
Right.
computer or a phone. It's like I say, it's a passive aggressive person's, we're all used to passive aggressive people, but now they're like passive aggressive, like
Right.
to the ninth degree. And I mean, I honestly was not one of those people that would take friends off my phone. I might mute them where I don't see their posts as much until they calm down, and then bring them back. It's not like I'm the queen and I'm approving them. It's just that after a while, I don't want to absorb all of the negativity,
Mhm.
from them. But there has been literally, and I thought about it this way, like I'm kind of a loyalist. So even if I don't
Yeah.
like the person particularly, or maybe there's been something's happened, if somebody is being treated badly and it's unjustified, which none of this is usually justified, I will stick up for that person even if I don't agree with them, and I will let them know why. And I had two instances where I have done that for people, and when the chips were down, they didn't do it for me. They didn't have to agree with what I was posting, but they did not. And not that I'm a big girl. You guys know I'm pretty tough. I can stand up for myself. I can stand up for myself and you and you and you and you. But every once in a while, after you've kind of given credence to people for 20 years, 30 years, whatever the case may be, attention, business, stuck up for them, stood behind them, and then they don't for you. I'm like, you know what? That person was very vile to me. You
Mhm.
should have, instead of calling me out and saying it was too much, oh, that's too much, What about the person that called me an ignorant POS or that I
Wow.
should PIE? You know what I mean? Don't you think that was too much? All I did was say, listen, you can't talk to me like that. And I kind of went back at them, not with the violence, but like saying something, and they took their side. And I was like, you know what? I'll see you later. I'm
Mhm.
done. Like now I'm done. And I think that's like, I'm a very loyal person. You guys know that. So I would never, I don't talk to people the way that, I don't know about you, Sarah, but I know that Holly and I have gotten into some discussions, whether it be political or whatever. And again, it goes back to, you have to ask yourself in terms of the etiquette, would you say that
Mhm.
to you? Or if it was your sister, if I was being attacked verbally or otherwise right next to you and I'm your friend or your associate or someone that you've known for 20 years just from being around, and somebody came up to me and said those things that those people said, and you're sitting next to me, would you say, listen, back off?
Oh, I definitely
Right.
would.
Exactly. So people are like cowardice. They're not using any sort of
Mhm.
again, you have to ask
There
yourself,
used to be
would you do it?
repercussions. There used to be repercussions.
I thought you said there used to be refreshments.
No, repercussions. Like Sarah
There'd be
used the
yeah,
word.
exactly.
Sarah used the word polite society. That comes from society. Society where was the groups of well-bred, intelligent, upper class people who got together and they became society.
And there's an expectation.
And there's an expectation. And you could actually be shunned from society. You could be snubbed from society. And if you behaved poorly, you acted out, you did bad things, society would, in general, turn your back on you. So you would not be invited to things. You would not be welcome.
Right.
You could not be a part of the group anymore. And the group was usually a village, a town. Like it wasn't like just 3 or 4 people, it was where you were from. So there were ramifications for your bad behavior once upon a time. Now everybody does their bad behavior, and unless, I mean, there are no ramifications because there's a huge group of people over here cheering you on.
Right.
No matter
Right.
what
When
it
you
is.
do bad, when you do bad things, there seems to be like people over here adding fuel to the fire to just
Always.
say, keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Because this person who did this, and it's like maybe a minor thing, and then they keep, and then it's like you have another group, and then just get pile it on. I mean, would you want that happening to yourself, to your sister, to your kids, to your coworker? I mean, that's
They
like, why would I want people to be hurt in the real world as much as like, you know what I mean? Probably not.
And look at our real world. I mean, look at what is now acceptable that if it had happened anytime during my growing up, like people walking up and spitting on police officers or screaming,
Oh gosh, yeah,
they
that's a whole
get
other.
hauled off to jail and sit there until, they decided to let them out. But they can't do that now. But I think that our lack of
Because
respect
again, there's a group cheering on the
cheering you
bad
on.
behavior. No
Mhm.
matter what side, direction, whatever the behavior is, there is a group somewhere who thinks it's fabulous. No
Mhm.
matter
Yeah.
how
I know. And
bad it is, so
it's very frustrating, I think, as people that are from a different era. I mean, I'm from a different era, obviously. And we grew up with the etiquette of respect.
mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
I think that if you put respect in everything that you do, whether it's an interaction with a client, whether it's an interaction with another person, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on, whether it is across party lines, or if you are speaking to someone that of another ethnicity, you're not going to fail if you respect. But that's what we seem to be lacking today.
Well, and in general too, like people don't realize that when you go out in public and you open your pie hole and start spewing stuff out, it's remembered. And for me, like I work for a reputable local company. If I were to act poorly in public, I would be misrepresenting the people that I work for and my
Right.
family. Like I would
Right.
not want to be out in public, but there's some people that just does not matter. It's
That's true.
it's the 15 seconds of fame they get. It's not even 15 minutes anymore, it's 15 seconds. And the how many likes and new followers they get and stuff like that
Tweets,
versus being a
bots.
good person, you know.
Right. Right. It's like how much attention we get, even if it's bad attention. So, like what Sarah said at the beginning, treat others as you like to be treated. Go that extra mile with your thank you notes. Do that extra thing, pay things forward. That's a new thing too. You know what I mean? If you're not in a place in your life where you're having to write those thank you notes or those thank you email, whatever, you could always pay for the person behind you at Dunkin' Donuts if that's what your jam is, if that's what you're doing every day. And that's not necessarily etiquette, but it's just like we can do a whole show on paying it forward. Those little extra things, like if Holly can't tip the guys or gals at Walmart for getting the groceries order, she can get them lunch. Or, we can get coffee for that person behind us. Or, there's those little things that you
I
just do
think
when
there's
you put it out there, you get it back.
one of the restaurants here, they have a pay it forward program where you can, buy coffee or buy a slice of pizza for someone less fortunate than you, and they put it on a, and then if somebody comes in and they're hungry or they're like coffee, there's money there for them. So, I think that's a very nice way of paying it
And
forward
they're
too.
great people. And, for all the people that cause grief, you do get those lovely notes. You do get that little,
Yeah.
treat. If, hey, I thought of you and here I got a coffee, I got you one. And you do get the door held open for you, or you get a nice smile or an exchange. That's my favorite part, when you're letting the person go in the store and then they're going and you're with your car and then you start kind of laughing. You have that little moment, those little tiny moments in life. That's what makes it, wearing the mask and feel and breathing your own stank air, that's what makes it worth it. And we can't forget to do that. Those all make a difference. The little notes, even if it is an email or a text,
During our is an etiquette that is new for us,
right.
because that's been such a controversy. Some people want to wear them, some people don't want to wear them.
Right.
Is it good? Is it bad? But it boils down to, again, an etiquette. If you wear your mask and they wear their mask,
Right.
we're protecting each other. So,
And always, 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 if you're going to some people's house, please, please, I beg of you, always bring something.
Unless you're this person, I do want to say this and get this out there. And since we're almost at the end of the show, I'm going to tell you guys this, and then you can respond in the comments about it, because this is the best RSVP I've ever seen. It's an RSVP for a wedding. And it's Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so responded for 14 adults, 3 kids, plus one more, plus an 18-month-old, plus a 23-month-old. And they would like to hear Follow Me Club Mix and Beyonce on the RSVP to a wedding. So they're bringing like 21 people with them extra.
Wow.
To the wedding. So you could always have that.
Interesting. Was it a place where you could maybe that's an interesting thing to put on an invitation? Would you like to hear a particular song? That's an interesting thing. That's interesting. I like that. Always RSVP. And if you're not going to make it that day because Aunt Florence fell down the stairs, let somebody know. Don't be rude. And if you're lying about it, don't put it on your social media. It drives me crazy. So we didn't even get to our poll question. We asked today, did people send thank you notes? We got a lot of responses for that. So it proves to me that those niceties, indeed, a lot of people are doing it, but they also teach their kids to do it. So hopefully this next generation, we always think that we're the better one, or we're the last of the good every time we have a generation. So maybe that's going to be the case coming forward. These kids will know what to do. So that there's always hope.
There is.
Right? There is always hope. And be kind, genuine, keep it classy.
I think the easiest way to have good etiquette is to think before you speak and do. Just think about it for a few seconds. What would you like somebody to do?
Right. Would you like it to be done to yourself?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
This has been another fun show, ladies. Thank you so much. We always have something to say. We will be back again next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. with another fun topic. We are so glad that you were with us tonight. Make sure you mention live or replay in your comments so that we can talk back to you and see what you have to say. We want to thank our sponsors, brokersrealty.com of Stroudsburg. If you're going to buy, rent, sell, auction, do whatever with a piece of property, make sure you check them out. Sarah Smith Katz, who happens to be one of our favorite hosts down there below me. She is actually one of their best agents right here, and she's super busy, but she still has time for you. Thank you, ladies, for such a fun topic tonight, and we will see everybody next week, right?
Oh, yeah.